I'm Pete DeLucia. I'm Councilman Deputy Supervisor here in the town of Lewisboro. And on behalf of our supervisor, Peter Parsons, I'd like to welcome you all here today. And I just wanted to come and say a few words to really show the board's support, the entire board's support for the Energize Lewisboro program. It's a fantastic opportunity we have here in Lewisboro. And I want to thank our councilman in the back room, Dan Welsh, who really has promoted these programs also on an often, very often basis. He brings these great programs to the board. And I'm so happy we have people like Heather that are able to, run with these programs and get these things off the ground here in town. And how fortunate we are here in Lewisboro to have Energize Lewisboro, where we can actually use the energy coaches that are here today, have a presentation, actually have our own homes evaluated almost free to very minimal cost to really see what we can do to improve and make our homes more energy efficient and save money and help save the environment by not having the money and the energy we have just flying out our windows or out the doors or through the insulation or things like that. So I just want to once again just show our support here for our town to town. I'm sorry, I'm a little out of it this morning. I have a little bit of a cold. But I just wanted to be here to really show the support of the town. That we're very excited about this, and I'm excited to have such a room full of people here today at the library to come out and listen to these great people here today. So I just want to turn it over quickly to Heather and to Norm, who are going to be your presenters today, and be able to give you all the information you need to know. Thank you very much.
And you're getting your home assessed.
I'm also going to get my home assessed. I'm getting my bills together so I can have them evaluated and get all the information, and we're going to do something in my house hopefully very, very soon. And I'm excited to see where all my dollars are flying out the window.
And Peter Parsons had his assessed, and he said he would have had the work done by now, except for Sandy.
Peter had a lot of damage to his roof,
yeah.
to a lot of different things. He had a lot of work done, but I think in that same process, he's hoping to be able to, while he's doing some of the work, get some of the things that he needed to get done to make his home more energy efficient.
Right, but I'm sure he's wasting more than usual.
I'm sure. Well, thank you all very much for coming, and thank you, Heather.
Thank you. Feel better.
Thank you.
So, I'm Heather Flournoy. I'm the chair of the Lewisboro Sustainability Committee. And more recently, I've gone to work for Energize New York, and I'm the community outreach director for Energize. So I have two hats here today. One up, the other one up, as a member of Lewisboro. So I'm here with the Sustainability Committee. Chris Solar, some of you, he was helping answer questions before. Bob Fishman is helping answer questions. Dan Welsh, back, is a town councilman and is answering Energize questions and who helped promote this to the town. Do we have any other members here today? We also have with us some contractors who are the people who are out in the field doing the assessments. So we'll tell you all about Energize and how to find a contractor, but three of our contractors are here today. Mario Bruni, here, Michael DeCandia, and where's Larry? Larry Nisman, here, Phoenix Mechanical. And our energy coach is here, Norm Jen. So you'll talk, are you going to tell us what Energize is, or am I doing that?
Why don't you go ahead? You're better at it than I am.
Okay. So Energize New York is a municipal nonprofit, and its membership consists of the 15 towns of northern Westchester, and Lewisboro is one of those members. So this is a town-sponsored program to promote residential energy efficiency, to help people save energy, save money, improve the maintenance of their home and comfort of their home. And it's each town has a sponsoring organization. In Lewisboro, that is the Sustainability Committee, as well as the town. Soon the town's also working on approving a commercial program as well through the same group, but we're focusing on the residential outreach. So there's a core staff at Energize, and they have an office in Yorktown. There's a core staff that helps do all of the applications. So if any of this sounds confusing today, if you have questions, I handed out a piece of paper if anyone doesn't have them. I do have more copies here now. There's a phone number and an email and a website here, and many of the questions will be answered here. There's an online application. The library is also offering to be a resource for people to do the applications themselves. So they'll be getting training soon on how to do that. But we are available at the office, the smiley hat, back to Energize New York, that's to help you do any of the application system. Norm Jen is our independent energy coach. He doesn't work for any contracting company. He works for us at the main office, and he actually certifies contractors to do energy efficiency work. He certifies them in building performance. He lives in Chappaqua, And if anybody has a question, if you go ahead and get an energy assessment, and you have questions about how to figure out what to choose, what measures to choose, you would call us and we would set up an appointment with the energy coach. That's a free service. That's one of the things that we offer, is to have a kind of somebody to explain. Your contractors will also explain it, but if you don't understand it, if you question it at all, we provide another voice of somebody to take a look and help you figure out what to do, or help figure out financing. So Norm, you start and tell us a little bit about building performance.
Sure.
And assessments.
Okay, so while this thing is warming up, I'll just quickly introduce myself again. My name is Norm Jan. I'm the energy coach for Energize New York. I'm a resident over in Chappaqua. I've been down there for about 20 years, and I'm a second-generation home builder. So I've been, kind of actively working in this area for quite a while. And one of the interesting things while I'm waiting for this guy to warm up is, the whole idea of building science and, how we approach homes from an energy efficiency standpoint. And I know that as a builder. Hang on a second, I'm kind of talking. I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. So, I know that as a builder, we had our own ways of thinking about how we build homes and how things come together. And it was, one day, actually Earth Day, several years ago, that my daughter came home and kind of approached me and said, "Dad, do you cut down trees when you build houses?" We said, "Oh, honey, sometimes, yeah, we do." Right? And, she got me thinking that, maybe it's time for us to start thinking about what's green. And, what is this green building thing? And green building, in many ways, is about the environment and thinking about emissions, right? Carbon footprint, right? We burn stuff to heat our houses, right? So quite often, this is about, this is one of the greenest things we could do. So we get into this and we start thinking about energy efficiency, and I found that the way we think about homes has just been turned on our ears. It's just been totally upside down, right? We no longer really think about, just put the insulation on the walls and cover it up, right? We start thinking more scientifically about things. And so the basis of, a lot of the home assessments that you would have done if you go through this program is really scientifically based. We use buzzwords like home performance and building science. And we actually take a more scientific and better educated approach to how you're going to evaluate your homes. So at the heart of a lot of these energy audits, as we know them, is really what we'd like to refer to as a comprehensive home assessment. Right? It's different than an energy audit. One of the first things we learned from building science is there's more to your house than just saving energy. Right? Is it possible that if we do such a great job, you certainly want to heat up air, you want to trap the warm air in your house, right? You don't want to lose your heat. What happens if we do such a great job of trapping the air in your house that no fresh air gets into your house, right? We could just think intuitively about this. That's probably not very healthy, right? So right there, we have to start thinking about other things, not just energy efficiency, but what about indoor air quality, all right? We could do great things to, to make your houses, more airtight. We can make it more, better and healthier to live in, okay? And we also need to think about doing anything in your house that might not compromise the structural integrity of the house. We want your house to be durable. So when we start looking at houses and we get into what we call home performance and building science, we take a comprehensive approach to how your house is being evaluated. Not just about how do we save energy, right? Let's make sure it's energy efficient. Let's make sure it's safe, right? And let's make sure that everything that's in there is built to last. So that's the heart of comprehensive home assessments. And that's why we actually don't call them energy audits. Okay, so again, this is really not just an evaluation of, is there enough insulation in the attic, right? It goes beyond that. It goes down to, What's going on down in your mechanical room? Are things burning properly? Is it safe? You have a carbon monoxide problem? Well, let's find out, right? So we take a look at a lot of these things. I'm an instructor sometimes when I'm not building. I actually go off and I teach these classes to people who are certified to participate in this program. And that's a lot of what we preach about. Right? We want to make sure that homes are energy efficient. Yeah, sure, but safety always comes first, right? Let's make sure homes are safe and they're built properly. And you know, some of the things that we yap about in some of these certification classes are, you know, some concepts that we as homeowners really should think about. And one of them is what we refer to as house as a system type of thinking. In the good old days when we built homes, you know, the plumber was the plumber. He didn't care about the insulation guy. The insulation guy didn't care about the guy who was putting in the ductwork, right? They are all three different guys. We find that, you know what, the more you think about it, they're all interrelated, right? Somebody does a poor job on the roof leaks, the insulation gets wet, right? The insulation doesn't work, air conditioning or the heating system has to work overtime, everybody loses, right? So everything is interrelated with one another. And it goes beyond that. There's mechanical systems, what's going on certainly outside, you know, if Hurricane Sandy comes through, that's an issue. And what about ourselves as homeowners? Amazing, right? If you think about it, you buy a computer, you get an owner's manual. You buy a car, get an owner's manual. Most expensive thing you've probably purchased in your life is your home. Did you get an owner's manual? Right? Can we go downstairs and say, I know exactly how that furnace works down there. Amazing, right? So, you know, let's think also as homeowners. You know, we could put in we could put in all this work to make sure your house is energy efficient. You dial the thermostat up to 80 degrees, you're going to call me up and say, hey, can you come on down here and tell me why my energy bill is, you know, is not going down? Yeah, sure, right? So homeowners and as occupants of homes, we're part of the house as a system type of thinking. And we need to, and we can, start thinking about how we interact with our houses, right? Buy a Prius, you know, drive it down the street, you know, with the foot on the floor. And, you know, are you going to get great mileage? Maybe not. Some of the other things that we talk about in building science, and this is just, you know, just tip of the iceberg, but to give you a flavor for, you know, what's in building science and what do, you know, all these guys in the back who are certified contractors, you know, what do they have to put up with and what are they thinking about? You know, comfort, right? We often think, oh, I'm not comfortable. What's your first response? Go over to the thermostat and turn it up, right? Well, if you think about it, we think about it, that there's other things involved. Certainly during the summertime, humidity is an issue, right? You could turn the temperature down to 65 degrees, but if it's really humid, you have that cold, clammy feeling. It doesn't feel very good, right? How about air movement? During the summertime, you got a nice, warm breeze, right? Temperature is the same, but that breeze surely makes you feel better. In the wintertime, we have a different word for it. It's called a draft, right? So, you know, could be good, could be bad, right? How about exposure to the sun? You know, if you're under the shade, not in, you know, or if the sun's beating on you, feel different, right? So, as building science guys, when people call us up and say, you know, my living room's cold, or I'm not feeling particularly comfortable in my living room, we set about thinking about it, not just, well, what's the temperature in the living room? We set about thinking about it about, well, what are all the other factors involved? And so this is just kind of a flavor for some of the things that, you know, and ways that we think about how homes are going to be assessed. It's no longer just, let's just chuck another layer of insulation up in the attic and call it even. So, oops, wait. So, what we're basically, you know, trying to get people to think about is have your house checked out, right? Have it checked out with a comprehensive home assessment. And here's what you can basically expect. You deal with the paperwork, which we'll yap about, and, you know, New York State's the state. There's always that gauntlet of paperwork that you'll have to run through. But let's suppose we get through it. You find the contractor. Some of the contractors that we know are right over here. You can talk to them, okay? And they'll basically set up an appointment. They'll come to your house. You can expect that a comprehensive home assessment on site at your house, probably, what do you guys say, about 3 hours, give or take? Okay?
2-3 hours.
2-3 hours, all right? So they'll come to your house. Hi, I'm Norm. I'm here to do your comprehensive home assessment, okay? There'll be a lot of visual inspection. There will be around the outside of the house. They'll be on the inside of the house. They will see every corner of the house, basement to attic, every bedroom, every bathroom, every room in the house. And they'll look at a number of items, okay? They break out a bunch of, fancy equipment. Well, they may head down to the mechanical room, right? We mentioned that, hey, if your oil burner or your gas furnace or whatever it is burning improperly, what are some of the byproducts of, of incomplete combustion? Carbon monoxide, maybe not a great thing to have occurring in your house. Great, let's get to the bottom of it. Let's check it out. So we have all this fancy equipment that we might break out. My wife calls it ghost busting equipment, but they start playing with all these things. But we certainly want to know if there's a combustion problem, because if we do a great job at trapping all the warm air in your house, we might also trap all that carbon monoxide in your house, and then that would not be good, right? So we do a lot of combustion safety testing. Some of you guys may have seen, seen this whole thing with the blower door. We'll talk a little bit about what a blower door is shortly, but they'll break out the blower door. That's usually the big fun part of the energy audit or the comprehensive home assessment. And after that 2 or 3 hours on site, okay, a lot of the contractors go home. They have quite a bit of work when they get home, right? There's a lot of modeling of computer software modeling of your house. There's a lot of analysis that's going on in the background, okay? And shortly afterwards, the people who have done your assessment will come back to you, and they'll issue you a report. Okay, I don't know if you guys send it digitally or in paper, whatever. Sometimes they transmit it electronically. Sometimes they come to your house. It all varies. Okay, and they're going to tell you what the findings are. Well, we found this. We found this. We found this. All right. We found how much insulation is in your, is in your attic or in your walls. We found out whether or not the house is, very leaky and warm air is leaking out of the house. And we tested your furnace, it passed, or no, it didn't pass, and we actually need to make some remedial repairs, okay? And they'll get back to you with this, right? Some items are kind of, health and safety issues. Maybe you want to take care of, pretty soon, right? After that, they may also come back with a whole litany of proposed ideas, things that we could do. Maybe you need to upgrade your thermostat. Maybe they're recommending more insulation. Maybe they're recommending air sealing work, which we'll talk about. That's great, and that's something that we refer to as a work scope. All right. You as a homeowner, you can basically sit there and evaluate it. You can decide which items you want to take care of, which items you don't want to take care of. Nobody says you have to do everything that's on the work scope. A lot of times, this is where I get dragged into it. As an energy coach, somebody's looking at this list and it's got 45 items on it, and you're confused and you don't even know where to start. Great, no problem. You call over to Heather or Alyssa over at Energize. You say you'd like the energy coach to come out, and I'll come out and pay you a visit. And I'll sit down at your kitchen table with you. We'll go over it together and we'll discuss. One thing I also like to point out during the comprehensive home assessment is, these guys are walking around. Hey, you remember? Part of this house as a system is you. You're the homeowner. You're part of how the house works. This is a tremendous opportunity for you to learn from the experts. They're playing around with your furnace. Well, how does that work? Ask questions. Don't be shy. These guys are experts. They can answer a lot of questions for you. All right? So, one of the fun things that, we often hear people talk about are blower doors. What are these things? All right? And why do we care? Right? Well, one of the ways that houses lose heat is air moves and escapes through all the nooks and crannies and cracks that are in your house. Right? And we know a couple of simple things. We'd always been told that warm air rises, and that's true, right? So, cold air leaks into the house, it warms up, and then if there's any way that it can get out up high in the structure, it will, right? So, is air leaking out of your houses? Very good chance it is, right? As we sit right now. The only problem is, how do you find all these leaks? Where's it leaking? Is it up there? I don't know, right? But what would happen if we were to set up a fan at your door or anywhere in your house, and it starts sucking air out of the house? What happens? Well, replacement air has to come into the house, otherwise the house would implode, and that would be bad, okay? So all of a sudden, air might come rushing in through all these leaks at all these leakage points. Great. We can walk around the house, and we've got a whole bunch of tricks up our sleeves on how we find these leaks, and we set about fixing them and sealing them. All right? So the blower door helps us find air leakage issues, where we can fix them, all right? And what's the impact on us, the homeowners? Well, less warm air leaks out of the house. If it stays in the house, that's energy efficiency. And great. It also kills two birds with one stone. What else it does for me is, hey, less air moves through my house. And during the wintertime, we know it as a draft, right? So great. Houses feel more comfortable too. Excellent. Two-part deal. So, a lot of times we'll see blower door testing, as a key part of a comprehensive home assessment. So at the end of the day, I mentioned that you get this, sorry, this thing seems to have locked up. This thing like that? I apologize. Okay. So at the end of the day, again, this report is a summary of the findings of the house, right? We find out heat source, heat loss issues. So is air escaping through all these nooks and crannies? Yeah. Blower door will help us figure it out. Will we be able to just visually start to, evaluate your house and say, you know what? It's not just air leakage, but what about insulation, right? The pink stuff that you see in the, in the walls or in the attic, all right? Is it there? Is it properly installed? How well does it work? Right? Here's another concept that we could think about. We've all, do we all have a fleece jacket? Sometimes we wear it. You go outside on a windy day, and what happens? The air just rips right through your fleece jacket, right? Doesn't feel particularly good. So what's the solution? Well, if you just put a nylon shell over it, that fleece jacket works by trapping dead air. Well, guess what? The insulation in your house works the same way. A lot of them do. All right? So when we stop air from moving through the insulation works better, just like your fleece jacket would if you put a nylon shell next to it. All interesting thoughts. These are things that, some of the gentlemen in the back here focus on when they come out to do your home assessment. I mentioned indoor air quality. Right? So we're walking around, great. If you're walking around with one of these guys doing an assessment, ask questions. Don't be shy. Hey, what do you think? I've got these paint cans in the basement. Right? Do they generate volatile organic compounds and things like that maybe aren't great? Do you have a suggestion for me? Right? And they might be able to suggest that, maybe we can move these things out to a shed out back, get it out to the garage, whatever it is that we need to do. Okay, but mold, bacteria, possible asbestos or any other indoor air quality issues, yeah, they might come up during a comprehensive home assessment. Again, that's why it's a comprehensive assessment. Equipment issues, right? We may find out there's, things that might come up during combustion safety testing. Do you have a natural gas line? Is it leaking? You would be amazed how many times we turn up gas leaks, right? Let's fix them. It's just common sense, right? We occasionally see furnaces that, maybe on their last legs and maybe they really should be replaced, all right? And, it's amazing. Sometimes we find, just seemingly unrelated items, right? They say, well, here's why. There's always been this one spot on the roof, especially around this time of year, where, you get all the snow on your roof and you got that one spot that's always melting first. Well, is it possible that right below it there's a recessed light, and we know warm air rises, and if it rises and gets around and through that recessed light and starts heating up the roof deck from underneath, is it possible you might get that? Yeah. So it's always interesting. So some of these guys might come out and say, well, you know, the problem, you know, one of the problems we need to fix is, you know, we've got some leakages in the recessed light, and that's the reason why your roof deck always has that one bare spot, right, after a snowfall. So seemingly unrelated items all of a sudden become connected in this house as a system type of approach, and these guys, again, are usually really good at diagnosing these types of problems. So, you know, after coming up with all these problems, there's potential work scope. You know, they might talk about air sealing, breaking out foam insulation, and insulation, you know, blowing out more insulation potentially. They may take a look at duct work. Are your ducts leaking? Okay. You pay good money to warm up air. You push it into the duct work, and if the duct is leaking and is blowing out into a crawl space or something like that, great. You're heating you're heating the great outdoors for no reason at all, right? So duct work is sometimes in there. Health and safety, I mentioned, gas repair, you know, gas repairs, all these things. These are just some of the examples of some of the things that you might see on a work scope. Okay? And again, if the work scope becomes long, sometimes they're short, sometimes they're long. If they are long, don't forget, you decide what gets done, right? You don't have to do it all, right? It's your house. Do what you can, right? And if anywhere along the way, you know, you're not sure what to do, well, I'm available as a resource. I could help you kind of sort through this. Some of the other things that, you know, that you should be aware of, I don't really, you know, this is not really my corner of the world, is in Energize, through Energize, there's a huge number of financial incentives available to homeowners. Okay? Low interest loans, just straight up cash rebates available from the state. Okay? On-bill financing, all kinds of fancy ways to finance a job if you don't want to put the money out up front. Okay? So there are options that are out there. A lot of times the contractors that you would speak with are familiar with a lot of these programs, and if you don't want to talk to them about it or you have additional questions, Heather and Alyssa are very well versed at what financial incentives are out there. But, you know, that might play a role in what you decide you want to do or don't want to do. So at the end of the day, hopefully everybody's a winner, right? You know, your house is safer, your utility bills are down, your home's more comfortable, it's more durable, right? And we're doing something really good for the environment, right? We're lowering our carbon footprint. There's a question right
there. If I could just, maybe we're going to get to this, but I think it bears emphasizing that the items that go on this menu here they're not going to include items which, you know, are marginal improvement that's going to take 30 years to pay back. By definition, the things that they're going to put on there are things that have a pretty quick payback. And so financially, it's going to make sense for you. They're going to be 3-year paybacks, 7, 8-year paybacks.
Yes.
In that range. Yeah. I think that's important because you brought up the financial stuff.
Yes. So, you know, one of the things that, you know, if you think about it, of course, is if I presented you with 2 options, both of them cost $500. One of them is an energy efficiency improvement that maybe we model and we say, you know what, reduce your utility bill by $100 a year. Great. I give you you pay me $500 now. I'll give you back $100 a year. Your payback is 5 years, right? Another opportunity may come up that says you cost $500, but this one will save you $125 a year. So you give me $500, I'll give you back $125 a year. You get your money back in 4. If you didn't want to go with both, which would you pick? The one that has the quicker payback, right? You get your money back in 4 years or 5 years, right? The 4 years sounds better. So that's what we're talking about. And yes, most of these energy efficiency improvements that show up on a work scope have associated with it some type of financial analysis that determines how quickly you get your money back and does it save you money. right? If it's going to save you money, but it's going to take 30 years to get your money back, maybe I don't want to, maybe that's not terribly interesting to you. Thank you. So again, so everybody's a winner, you know, and hopefully, you know, this is a, you know, hopefully this is a program that, you know, the state of New York and NYSERDA and Heather and, you know, a lot of the people on the sustainability board would love to see us get more involved in, because it's not only saving us money, it's lowering our carbon footprint. So at the end of the day, you know, if you guys decide that you're really interested in this, you know, what's step one? Step one would be to head on over to www.energizenewyork.org, okay, and it's probably on some of these handouts. And right there, there'll be an opportunity for you. It'll pop up a window that says, please select your town, and it'll have all of the towns in northern Westchester in which Energize is working. You'll select Lewisboro or your appropriate municipality, okay? And it'll put up a screen looking like this, and all you need to do is click that button that says sign up, free, right? So you click on that, okay, and it's going to ask you for all your homeowner information, okay? And once you get through all of that information, it may ask you about your utility bills. If you have any history of your utility bills, always excellent, helps us get an analysis of your house done before you get started, okay? If not, or you're having trouble rounding up your previous utility bills, Heather and Alyssa are always available at Energize's main offices in Yorktown to help you get through the registration process. From there, step two is pretty straightforward, right? You get an approval, says, okay, we're all set, we're ready for you to have an energy, you know, or have a comprehensive home assessment done at your home. Depending on your income, it might be free, or it would be very heavily subsidized. So it's really, you know, it's really actually an excellent opportunity for us all. And it starts then with finding a contractor. If you end up at NYSERDA's website, the New York State, I don't know if you guys are you familiar with NYSERDA? New York State Energy and Research Development Authority. Okay, that's the arm of the state of New York that's, you know, that's in charge of running this program and issuing these rebates and things like that. NYSERDA's got a website that shows you all the approved contractors who operate in Westchester County. And there's about 70 of them. So one of the first questions that Energize always gets is, wow, how do I figure out which one of these 70 guys I want to hire? And so one of the things that Energize has spent an awful lot of time working on is vetting that list, right? There's some guys who might be, you know, coming out of Albany saying, yeah, we'll do work in Westchester County, right? Where's that? Where's Lewisboro? You'd be like, maybe not my guy, right? All right, so terrific. What we have, though, is on Energize's website is a group of vetted contractors. Now, we've put a couple of these guys through the ringer, right? We need to know that they're local, they're actively working in the area, okay? And actually, there have been a number of, we conduct surveys, you know, consumer satisfaction surveys, and, you know, we want to make sure that they have positive feedback. Okay, so Energize New York has a website of vetted contractors. I think there's 11 or 12, 11? 11 of them. Sometimes we refer to them as our comfort core. Okay, and they are a subset of the overall New York State list. And so, you know, hopefully you might want to consider contacting some of those guys and having them come on out and doing work with you. And again, you know, they'll come out, they'll do the home assessment, they will come back to you with the work scope. Currently, income limits are, you know, if you're making less than $215,000, it's free. Okay? Otherwise, we're talking, you know, $50, $100 or something like that, you know. It's pretty heavily, you know, subsidized. So that's real quickly, you know, what I had to, you know, talk about with you today. Again, if anybody ever has any questions, feel free to to email me, call me. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that it's really important when you make the judgment of your contractor, that you take some time to make that judgment, because before they come and do the assessment, you want to assess whether it's a contractor you want to work with, because if you want to change contractors after the assessment, you won't get the nice sort of money.
They will pay for one. They will pay for an assessment.
That's right, but you
so-
won't get either the next assessment free or the grant money that actually spends down the cost of the job.
That's actually, you can.
You can.
You could use any contractor who's participating in the program to do the work for you, even if it's not the person who did the energy audit for you, and still be eligible for the incentive money and loans through the state of New York, as long as you use an approved contractor to do the work. So you're not necessarily I agree, it's a good idea to
No,
try.
but that contractor has to stand by the scope of work that the other contractor put out.
So we'll go over all that in a minute. We're gonna have a panel,
Okay.
and we're gonna take all your guys' questions, and you can tell your experience, but we've got a number of things. There are, yes,
I'm sorry.
and we're gonna have you guys kind of come up here, the contractors, so it's Mario, oh, you're there, you're all three there. So I'm gonna answer questions on financing incentives and rebates. Norm has building science questions about your house, and the contractors can answer those questions too if you wanna ask particular questions. And I have I'm gonna take yours, but can somebody turn on the lights? It's sleepy up here with the, okay, what's your question?
You just, some of your comments just triggered a thought and a need of a clarification. So I can understand that if the income is under the 250, you get it free. Doesn't matter, you know, the household. Okay, but then you were saying something about you can only get one estimate free.
Yeah.
So that if you don't like the contractor, you have to start all over again and perhaps have to get another estimate? Or does the evaluation of the assessment can be held and continue with another contract? How does that?
It generally does not, because a contractor coming into your house has to guarantee that work.
Oh, okay.
Right, and so if they would have to trust whoever did they'd have to do the same exact evaluation
Okay,
and
so
trust
really
that
the
first one.
estimate is really
Completely.
defining the scope of work that would be.
Defining the scope of work.
Work that would be done.
Yes.
And then that contractor stands behind.
They just want to double check.
doing-
If you go to a doctor and you have your reports, that's
Yeah.
probably a really good report, but that second doctor is going to want to double check it.
Or just have a different view, period.
Or they may have a different view, they may
Yeah.
have a different approach.
Right.
To get to the same amount of energy
Right.
savings, they may have slightly different.
Now, the other thing that I thought I was hearing is that working with these particular contractors, you're getting sort of a special New York price. It's a certain pricing that if I didn't work within this system, it would cost me much more working on my own, or that's not?
No, you get
Not-
incentives through
not
the state of New York.
Yeah,
That you get a 10% cashback rebate if you use a contractor participating in the program, and access to the low interest financing. But
Okay,
it's
so
still up to
you're
the homeowner to do their due diligence as far as market pricing on what the scope of work is, and you can get 2 or 3 price quotes from different contractors to see, you know, where everyone stands as far as pricing goes.
But I can't afford to do that, getting all these estimates,
don't have to
because
get-
I'm getting
which
only
is
one
why
that's free.
which is why the
Okay.
program is, that they subsidize.
Okay,
this.
I just.
I think this deserves clarification, Heather. You get an energy audit. You're allowed one free energy audit through the state of New York. If for some reason you're not satisfied with that energy audit, you want other opinions, you're free to do what you like. Let's say you could get your energy audit, you can get a price quote from that person who did the energy audit, and then you could call up any other contractor on the list and say, can you come give me a price quote on replacing my furnace or insulating my house? So you're not bound to that one person. If you are starting off with someone who's going to do the energy audit for you, and it's good to have a relationship with them and trust them and so forth, but there's nothing that says you're tied to that person for the duration of this.
At the end of the day, the person who's most familiar with the home is the guy who's just spent 3 hours doing an assessment. So that being said, on the Energize website, there's a whole bunch of questions on this whole process of selecting a contractor, right? So ask hard questions, right? And
Ask for references.
ask for references. There are sample, there's a number of topics that are discussed on Energize's website on questions that you might want to ask a contractor before you make your selection. Right? So it's usually in everybody's best interest that the contractor that came and did the assessment is the same person who does the work. But it is true that if you wanted to have a different contractor do the work, you can. Now, if there are any questions with regards to after you've had an assessment and you're like, I don't know that this makes sense, there's a reason why there's an energy coach, and that would be me. I have had people on a number of occasions ask me to come out and explain why is this guy proposing to do this, or so-and-so is proposing to do this, does it make sense? And a lot of times
So, and I want to
Yes,
clarify
question.
one thing. Let me
clarify,
answer
yeah.
back to you. So you're saying that as a contractor, that, Larry, that people come, us as the nonprofit who answers homeowner questions every week, the reason that we try to get you to choose a contractor you're comfortable with up ahead, up front, well, first of all, working with those contractors that are within our program, with you guys that are within our program, if somebody has a problem, so first of all, if they work within this program through Energize and work with you guys, I don't know if you're quite aware of this, they have a whole number of resources like getting to talk with Norm or getting us to resolve issues for them. If you called one of the contractors who's in our court and your estimate sucked, basically, and I just realized that's going to be on TV. If your estimate, if you felt like, which hopefully it wouldn't be with one of you guys, you really felt it was completely inappropriate for your house, we would advocate for you with the state to get another audit paid for. We would help you select a different one.
We would. Say that again.
We would help you get another audit paid for. If there's any problem, if somebody's rude to you, they mess up your house, if there's, if you just don't feel like, you got to report back and it wasn't for measures that existed, for pieces that exist in your house, which we've heard happen with other outside of this program. With our group, that they're very professional, and that shouldn't happen. But other outside stories we've heard of. Pam had to leave here before, but she did this program 2 years ago. She initiated it through a NYSERDA contractor who, by the time she got the report back and called to get some of the work done, he he disappeared. He wasn't somebody who was going to continue working in the area, and he didn't end up being available to do the work after they had it actually approved. So she had to start over, and this whole process took her ages. So we would have interceded at that point. We would have actually, that most likely wouldn't have happened because these contractors are sticking around that are in our program, have businesses here, but if it would have, we would have been on top of it and helping you advocate and gotten you new assessment immediately. You wouldn't have had to go through the application process again. Those are the kind of things, and we like to see people through the process. We're trying to get them to select a contractor before they get that reservation number, not afterwards. So before they get that reservation, we want you out asking contractors questions, and we'll help you ask and find the one that works.
So Heather, let me gain clarity here. Okay, because you go get your assessment, because I've actually done this, right? Somebody goes get their assessment and gets a scope of work, and there's a whole list of scopes of work in order of what's most cost effective to what's least cost effective. Then you get a price, $12,000. You can go to any contractor. However, and this is what I want to ask you as a contractor. However, if you come in and you see somebody else's scope of work, in order for, and you're a BPI certified, you're a certified contractor, in order for the homeowner to get that 10% from the state, you have to say, yep, I agree with this and I'm willing to stand behind it.
I would do my own energy assessment and not charge the person to
And
do
not charge the person.
That's
for
correct.
that energy.
That's generally
That you
what
didn't
happens.
say before.
That's
Well,
generally what happens.
Oh,
Interesting, okay.
Hear it from this case. We don't guarantee that it'll happen with all the contractors, but we're hearing it from two of them here, or three of them here, that that's what they'll do.
It's one of the things that is provided in the scope, after the assessment is done. Do they state physically what the payback period is for every item that's associated with that? For instance, obviously, furnace obviously is gonna be a big dollar item, versus let's say someone's saying, I'm just gonna add insulation. That, you know, if the insulation costs $1,500 to add, is my payback period gonna be 5 years or 10 years versus
I
a
think Bob
furnace?
has his assessment right there, and I don't know if Jim brought his, if Jim's still here, if you brought your assessment.
Yeah, I
You
brought
know.
mine, yeah.
If people wanna see some assessments, or if you guys brought assessments with you, like assessment reports, a sample assessment report, so what you get is you do get return on payback periods for different measures. Another issue, just to say though, working with the contractors within the program, if you get a scope of work, if you get a bid and then you go out to get a bid of somebody who's not in the program, there's no, people outside the program don't have to follow up, like if the ceiling of the home caused a mold issue, there's no recourse outside of this. So within this program, there's recourse on that, and there's quality assurance visits that can be requested. And there's also a whole number of things that we do. We're doing case studies, by the way, so if anybody goes ahead with this and wants to participate in case studies, we are collecting data and need you guys' participation. More questions? Yes?
I did some online research a few years ago, and there was a couple of, and I can't cite specific resources because it's been a few years, but they specifically said you should not have the people do the work be the same people that assess the home. In other words, there's an inherent conflict of interest, because if you get a contractor to say, yeah, it needs this, 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 and this, and it may not need those things, but they make the money off of it. They say there's certain firms that specialize in just doing assessments and not doing the work, and then you go solicit bids for the work, and that seems to be directly in conflict with what I'm hearing now.
Right, so the state wanted a program that was comprehensive and had all these checks and balances, including, so when you get this scope of work, if you get an assessment and then you decide you want a number of these things done, these measures, each of these guys know which of those measures qualify for financing, something called on-bond financing, which we'll get to in a second, which qualify for the 10% rebate. If anybody were income qualified, there's an assistance grant from the state that can pay up for 50% of the work if you're below 80% of Westchester's average median income. And knowing all of that and working within that program, you need the same person to guarantee and set a projected energy savings. And that's the difference from those programs. The programs you're talking about too, we have a really unique area. This has become really apparent to me lately as I've watched all the interns try to do case studies. When you're reading about energy efficiency in the country, most of what they're talking about is areas that are gas, not oil. So I have gas and electric and not oil. And we have a whole different way of evaluating and doing energy savings modeling and projections of the home and guaranteeing how much savings you're going to get from this work. So that person going out and doing your assessment has to give you a projected amount of reduced airflow and energy savings and evaluate what you're going to end up saving energy-wise going forward. And we need that person to be a part of the process.
Can I address that also? Because I think it's a good question.
Yeah.
It's just like the fox guarding the hen house, and the contractor, each contractor in the program specializes in a particular type of improvement. We're a mechanical contractor. Bruni's mechanical contractors. Michael, I think, is more of shell. Some do everything. So it's a good question. But there's certain realities in life. If you hired, and you can, someone who's completely third-party independent that has no stake in the game, you're going to pay $600, $700, $800 for an energy audit, and that's fine. And that might be a surefire way to kind of avoid what you're talking about. But since that's not terribly cost-effective or practical, and you won't get your free energy audit, and the state designed the program that contractors are the ones doing the energy audits, you know, to a certain extent, you have to trust what the person's saying to you when you have the follow-up meeting to go through the reports and use your best judgment to see if you're getting BS or not. And then what Energize provides, which is a great service, is Norm is a third party. So if you're unsure, you can go to Norm and he'll evaluate it, and he's got no stake in the game other than to see what the contractor did and said, and does this ring true, and that's a way to kind of overcome your concern. which is valid,
And
but
Mario has another answer to this.
To add to what Larry's saying, there's some checks and balances that are built into the system beyond that as well. If you have any questions during or after the audit is done, and question on what was suggested, does it make any sense? Is it taking me for a ride? It's one of the things that NYSERDA tried to broach early on, because there's an inherent distrust with many contractors, and we all understand why. So they tried to vet the contractors throughout the state, and they've done further vetting here to make sure we have contractors that are ethical and are going to do it properly. But beyond that, if you have questions and you go to Norm, even once you've been, once Norm has quelled your fears, and you move on to the program, we have to justify to NYSERDA that the items that we are suggesting will indeed provide you with the payback that we say. And it has to be proven to them before they will approve us to go forward with you in the program. Beyond that, once we do the work, there's a checking agency that follows us up, not on every job, but on enough jobs to make sure that we have to do every job right. That comes up and physically comes into your homes and checks to make sure that we did every item within, not within just the scope of the list that we provided you, but within the scope of the protocol provided by NYSERDA. So if there are items, even items that we aren't necessarily addressing, let's say we're working on the insulation in your home, and not necessarily replacing a furnace or a water heater or anything like that. But they come in and find out that that water heater you had in your home wasn't originally installed properly. Not by us, by somebody 10 years ago. If we didn't notice it, we are slapped on the wrist, because we have to check that as well, even though we're not replacing it. So they have these safeguards built into the program just for that reason, and for the reason that we understand throughout the years, some contractors have misbehaved, almost as badly as some of our politicians. No, none here. Just the ones in Washington. And that the consumer really needs some kind of safeguard, and they need to be quelled, their fears quelled, that someone is watching for them, because we know you don't understand mechanical contracting, you don't understand insulation, you're not expected to, but they do. So they're behind you, making sure that we do what's supposed to be done, and no one's trying to pull the wool over your eyes. That's one of the bases for this program.
What, next question?
You may have said this and I may have missed it, but as the homeowner, do we have the choice to do all, some, or none?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And then if you choose to do none, then do you have to pay for the assessment? It's still free if you qualify?
Yep.
Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm wondering, following on what you said, if the program has been going on long enough that you have some validation yet as to whether the estimates provided are actually accurate. But nobody can estimate perfectly, right? So there's got to be some probability that the amount that they say you'll get back is what you'll actually get back.
We're actually just finishing up our 7th case study, so we can provide those to you if you want to email them, but they will be on our website soon and in the newspapers soon. And we're seeing some higher than what was projected, some lower, so it's a range.
and just to
Well,
clarify.
you expect it to be, yeah.
Well, there's software that is pre-designated that we use for most of the contractors in the program. And if you use the software properly, and put good data in, good measurements and all that, and know how to use it properly, the results of that software have been very accurate. At least I found. We've done follow-up before and after our own case studies, and it's
a
been
good
really,
model.
it's been pretty good, yeah.
Difficult case studies are though, because here's the thing. So this person did this analysis 3 years ago, say, and since then your mother-in-law moved in. So you have another person using, and because the same thing so there's something called the rebound effect, and it's nothing to do with dating. It's so you improve your house, your envelope, and you think that you can. Well, I'm saving energy now, so I'm going to put it at 74 because it feels better. And you used to be really worried about your bills, and you kept it at 68. We're trying to compare. We're trying to figure out your lifestyle to do these analysis, and every single thing that's changed in your house. So there's a lot to it.
Japanese paradox.
Other than the payback you said about subsidies, and you were talking about a 10%, is that sort of a general state thing with everything? For instance, say you wanted to do something larger, solar generators, solar panels, whatever. Is that also just a flat 10%, or is it different? And if it is different, is there any place that you can find that information?
On our website, you can find a lot of the information, and on your sheet, there's something about the rebates, and the contractors have all that information when they come out and do your assessment. They'll tell you all the approved measures. The 10% is a state rebate, so after your job's complete, you'll get sent back a check for that, the 10% of approved measures. You mentioned solar. That is not part of this. There are other state programs. If you are going to be, by the way, if you are going to be doing renewable energy with your home in the future, make sure you let your contractor know there may be some things that they need to take into account when they're doing your insulation factors. But there's financing, there's a federal credit that was just reinstated, and you guys all talked about that, right? You know about the federal credit and tell them about that, and again, there's the assisted home performance grant.
If you go on your site, you'll have all that information?
There's all that information on how to finance it, how it works. It's under how it works. So just tell you briefly about on-bill financing. It was introduced this past year. It's through the state, and if you go through this program, there are approved measures that they'll tell you about, and all of that, the whole job up to $25,000 can be financed out of the money that you're saving, out of the projected savings at 3.59% financing. It is repaid through a line item on your utility bill, on your electric bill.
I was thinking of, this is for Lewisboro, since I live here, with the outages, you know, that we had, and like the last one was just hard. The big one, that was just horrible for me. But anyway, if I have to be with out of electricity for a whole week plus, which is sort of where it went, and I don't know where the future is, and I don't know if there's going to be any improvements, but if I'm anticipating that first it was 1 day, then 3 days, and now up to a week, and we're just sort of saying, okay, you know, 3 days, I have to live with a whole week without it. Is there any special programs that I can consider alternative that give me some special incentive and discount in setting up? Because nobody's talking about it, but everybody's talking about generators. Is there something for that kind of a situation?
We hear it's coming.
Not in this program.
Not in this program, but we hear that it's a possibility through NYSERDA that it's coming. That it could be a part of the approved measures by end of year.
Because for me that would be a very important part of changing, yes, of just changing my whole, you know, emergency setup.
I would just say that on the generator side, I mean, I've learned a lot about that. And I'm not an electrical contractor, but between like my mother's house and other houses take care of that, if you're going to do anything electrical on your house, let's say on the service side, like on a panel side, speak to your electrical contractor there and say, I really would like to have that facility done, take care of it. Because that's essentially in our houses here, it all has to do with electricity. I mean, you know, you can get propane fired generators and things, but you're looking at thousands of dollars, whereas, you know, if you're going to do electrical upgrading on your home, speak to your electrical contractor and he can at least facilitate on a low cost size getting you set up for a generator to, you know, and obviously not run your house, but at least make it livable during these storms when.
Generators typically require 2 contractors. They require someone to do the gas work. It's either going to be propane or it's going to be natural gas, and an electrician. I'm not sure if these, I think you install generators too.
We do generators.
They install generators as well as we do.
Oh, okay.
We come at it from the mechanical side because we handle the gas side of it, and we have electricians that we work with, just as electricians have mechanical contractors that they work with for the gas. So you can go to either one, not necessarily just an electrician.
We have no gas up here.
No, if you don't have gas, we use propane.
Yeah, propane.
Something has to power the
Right.
generator.
Right.
Did you have a question?
So, or either that or we put a big wheel and a donkey in the backyard.
We have those.
I actually have 2 questions.
Not bad.
You mentioned that you all specialize in one thing or another. So, like where I live, I'm assuming that I have issues in all the specialties.
We don't necessarily specialize in one thing. We have joined the program from a certain point. We are plumbing, heating, and air conditioning contractor, as is Larry. I believe he come from the insulation side of the business, the shell side of the business, but we all do all of it. It's just that that's what where our starting point was. We also do insulation as he does. He gets into the mechanical portion as we do.
You guys should introduce yourselves. Sorry, so one at a time. Why don't you just introduce your name, your company, and sort of a paragraph on what you do specialize in. Yeah, and then all three of you will do that, because I forgot to do that part.
Hi, I'm Mario Bruni. I'm with Bruni and Campisi Energy and Conservation Services, and our sister company, Bruni and Campisi Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. We've been in business in Westchester for 34 years now. We have approximately 30 trucks. We do all of Westchester. We do Greenwich and Stamford as well. We've been in the home performance business, which is this business and this program, for I think about 3 years or so. We're certified in all the areas of certification that are offered. We do, besides doing the plumbing, heating, mechanical, and the insulation, we also do generators. We also do geothermal. We do not do solar. What else can I tell you?
That's good. I mean, how do they contact you? You can look on our website on the homepage of Energize Lewisboro. It says find a contractor. You'll find Bruni and Campisi, their phone number, their address, their email.
Yeah, I think the point is that we all approach a home as a whole house. So there are specific systems, a generator being one, with the house as a shell. My name is Michael DeCandia. I've lived in this community with my family, one of whom is here tonight, for 24 years. I've actually done my own home. I put it through the program. I have on-bill financing for 2 of my homes, actually. One very small home and one not so small home. But I have seen, as an architect, as a developer, as a builder, as a real estate agent, I've seen hundreds of homes. And I go into new homes and I'm mortified by what I see sometimes. I mean, contractors don't know how to build. So be wary of contractors that would come in, maybe give you a better price for insulation, but they're not contractors that are going to be overseen by a third party. So if you choose one of us here, or choose one of the 11 in the core, or one of the 85 that are in the NYSERDA program. So we understand building science, I think, as architects and as builders, as well as anyone else. We know mechanical systems as well as anyone else. But we would be the first to say, well, you know, Larry or Mary, it would be best to go to replace your boiler. Our assessments, again, are whole house assessments. And we do work with a core of professionals that understand solar and geothermal, alternative sources of energy. We work in single family as well as multifamily homes. And we would like to help and answer any questions that you may have after this
And introduce your...
My compatriot, Julian, and his wife, Heather.
Hi.
We're a group of people. There are a bunch of people in the office, so it's with Julian's help, we're able to complete projects and satisfy customers.
And you guys do, you do contract, you know, like you prepare people for doing solar and geothermal and those type of things?
Yeah, we understand how they integrate with the building. So, you know, we're not installing it, but we know who the appropriate parties are, and we would recommend so that you could vet those parties.
My name is Larry Nisman from Phoenix Mechanical. We are a mechanical contractor in Westchester. It's a family business, so my brother and father are involved. Phoenix has been in business for 18 years, and the principals of Phoenix have been doing heating and cooling for well past 30, 40 years. We've been in the home performance program since 2008. We install heating, cooling, plumbing, generators, geothermal, things of that nature, very similar to Bruni and Campisi. I'm the one who actually goes out and does the energy audits, and to answer your question directly, we evaluate everything and have knowledge. I have knowledge of insulation, air sealing. We do infrared analysis, which is a tool we use to see where air leakage is and diminished insulation. So we can give you good advice on that, as well as the mechanical side of things. And when it comes time to perform work in your homes, we can do the mechanical work, but if it's insulation or air sealing, we would refer you to other contractors that we've worked with in the past through the program that we feel confident will offer quality services. So we would refer that specifically out to people we trust and help you through the process. We don't just kind of leave you. It's not as complicated as it all sounds. It actually runs pretty smoothly.
This is all part of, if you're subcontracting, this is
Partner contractor, and the partners that you recommend are ones that work within the program, yes?
That's correct. I mean,
So that
ideally,
so that the rebates and the financing, they're
right.
still qualified.
So you're
for that.
eligible for all the incentives, and through the state of New York, you have to use contractors participating. We would refer you to a contractor who's in the program, and it all gets tied in through the state computers, so they know it's one big project. So it is seamless, even if it's two different contractors participating on the same job.
Bob?
Well, so I'm Bob Fishman, and I'm not a contractor here, but I just want to touch base on the sort of bigger picture issue, which is why the state is even doing this. And that's, and you know, we've all gone through Hurricane Sandy and Irene the year before, and the snowstorm at Halloween, and all these issues that we've started to see and how they affect the electricity grid. So what's the state's interest? Well, the state has to provide power to all of us, and in doing so, they have to address the growing power needs that we all have. We have computers, we have more electronics in our homes. Our homes tend to be fairly inefficient in how they use energy, and the state, as they look at this, and this is also, you know, nationally, of course, and globally, they're looking at the impact that the energy use is having, and the reason they're giving these incentives and rolling out these programs is so that we can all find ways to reduce our energy use, and so doing help to mitigate some of the problems that we have twofold. One, as I mentioned, the increase in electrical demand, and also the climate footprint, which in turn is threatening everything that we've come to know. So, and while, you know, I'm not being a Chicken Little and saying the sky is going to fall tomorrow, the state does need to plan long term, and so I just want to kind of put that out there so people understand what the reasoning is behind all this. It's, you know, the state isn't making any money off of this. The state is trying to help all of its residents find ways to become more energy efficient, because in the end it helps everybody in the state.
There is actually a third reason, which is that, you know, to the extent that you're saving money on your utility bills, that actually frees up money for you to spend as discretionary income locally. And so actually, there is actually an economic bump that comes to the state in the form of local commerce. Hopefully you save your money, hopefully you'll go out to a restaurant or go to a movie or something. That's right.
Absolutely true.
All right, do we have more questions? Guys, do you think we should call it? So I'd like to say thank you to you guys for coming and answering questions. And I have a sign-up sheet here for anybody. I know a number of you, we started your applications earlier, and we'll continue on with that process. If you want to sign up here or on my computer, we can do either of those right now and start the sign-up process. Otherwise, you can go home and go on to energizelewisboro.org.
Can I just ask one question, since I'm going to go home and I have to go on the website? Can you just sort of summarize what is expected?
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't prepared that things are expected of me in going on that sign-in.
To do your application, there's several things we'd like you to have prepared. It goes much faster if you have these. You need 12 months history of your electric usage. So that means not your bills that you've paid. It means that the actual kilowatt hours. So you all use NYSEG here. So you can go to their website, and there's a little login on your account if you have one, and go to the energy use tab. If you don't have an account, it only takes a few minutes to set it up. If you don't have, if you know anyone, if you even run into someone that has problems doing that, call us and we'll help get that information. So you want to download that, you want to copy the page, open a Word document, or if you use a Mac, open a Pages document, save it into that document. If you use Pages, make sure you export it to Word. The state can't read Mac documents.
They will do a PDF.
Hmm?
But they can't take a PDF.
Yes. Most people, that actually doesn't work. It'll save it as an HTML file, which won't be read by the
Pages will
state.
save PDF.
Hmm?
Pages will save PDF.
Pages you can save as a PDF. So a PDF or a Word document, make sure you do either of those. Copy that information there, save it. You're going to have to upload that into an online application that we've created. We also need your oil or other heating source. If you have 2 forms of heating, we need all those bills, and we need them saved again into a Word or PDF. Easiest thing to do is to call the company you get that oil or your heating fuel from. Ask them to email you your energy usage history with gallons included and on their letterhead or with their company contact information on it. They will send you that as an email, then you just have it to upload. So the application itself takes about 15 minutes if you have those documents prepared. The only other step we ask you to do is to choose a contractor ahead of time. The application process goes a little quicker if you do that. You can just click on I'll decide later. You're still going to have to do it before you can have the assessment done. So choose your contractor, get cards from these guys, ask them questions. You can have an opportunity to ask them questions about your house and your project right now. Otherwise, we recommend that you call them up. And we have questions on the website. If you click on Find a Contractor, on the left-hand side it says questions to ask your contractor, and we suggest that you ask, have you worked, tell them what kind of house you have. Do you have references, local references for a house like that, or if you worked on houses like this, or what do you often recommend? Or if you think, we didn't get to that about windows tonight, so I want to get you to answer that quickly, but if you think you know what the problem is, go over that, say, like Larry was saying, if you know you're going to need a furnace, this is a good time to get the assessment done and to get some help in paying for the furnace system. And again, just to remember, I had somebody call me on Friday who needs a new furnace, so she's going to do this really quickly. If she gets her insulation work done and air sealing, it could be that she is going to need a smaller unit than if she goes out, buys the furnace first, and then calls and gets an assessment. So she might save money at that level as well. Okay, so those are the things you're going to need for that online application. Yes?
If you are properly air sealed, you have the right insulation, you probably will downsize your heating system, so you'll spend less in fuel. You'll have a more efficient system. These guys can tell you right away you'll be saving money in 4 different areas.
Mm-hmm. One of the concepts that you think about it is you heat up you heat up your house, right, and as we speak, heat is escaping out of the house, right? So to the extent that you do a bang-up job and you've really got the house well insulated and air sealed, less heat's escaping from the house. Do you need such a big gun of a furnace? Or the next time you go to replace a furnace, you might be able to put in a smaller one. Smaller ones generally are going to act more efficiently for you.
All right. Great. Yeah. Thanks for coming out, guys.
You're watching Lewisboro Community Television, Channel 20.